Welcome to me explaining my creativity process. Woo! First I go on Pinterest because Pinterest is bae. I knew I wanted a long coat, so I started looking at that, trying to find inspiration. I decided like a knee length kind of around there would be the best. Then I went to Google, my other bestie, to search up more ideas and looking in, and I was like, maybe I want like those crossover ones with like the buttons because they're really cute. And I'm too broke to buy one. Then I got out my paper and I wrote down Houndstooth coat because I'm using a Houndstooth print because it's my favorite pattern and I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with it. And then I wrote down my little notes being like, I want inner hip pockets and I want a knee length. And that was what I was starting with. And then I did my little illustration that took an embarrassingly long amount of time, so I sped it up a lot. And then I started my drawing, and I was like, off-shoulder sleeves, because I love those too. This is just all about things I love. That's what this coat is. And I knew I wanted like a loose, relaxed fit on my sleeves and on the general part of the coat. I didn't want to be like too tight and fitted because I like the room in my coat. It traps this little like heat bubble around me, and I can wear sweaters underneath because I get cold. Because I can no longer handle the cold. Yeah. And then I cleaned up my line so I could actually like see what I was drawing. Added my buttons. I was like, yeah, some cute little buttons. And then I added my collar because collars are cute. Collars are like really cute. And I wanted them to be more rounded. I was thinking like a nice little rounded collar, you know. And then my hip pockets, little dotted lines to show that there's a pocket under there. Added one onto the chest too. Because it's a cute look. I don't know. It's kind of like a manly look, but like also feminine, which is like my vibe. So that's my coat so far. And I was like, oh, I'm going to add all my notes. I say, ooh. I do this every time. I always add my notes along the side. It helps me when I'm going back and looking at my drawing and being like, oh, what was I planning? Because I can't remember. So I wrote my little notes, like I want off the shoulder, how I want my neckline. Like I didn't want it high, I kind of want to fall below the collarbones, which is also what I drew in there. Little squiggly lines are my collarbones. And my off shoulders, because I like a little drop shoulder. They're very cute. And they add that nice like wide shoulder, you know. I like shoulder pads too. I like all that stuff. I have a very eccentric style, some would say, but it's also like retro. But I also like, I don't know where I'm going with that tangent. Anyways. And then I cleaned up my drawing because it's a mess. Because when I'm working for myself and doing my own drawings, they're just like messy and rushed. This looks rushed. This took me like 20 minutes at least. I don't know. I can't remember because I sped it up. And it took me so long to get around to this voice recording that I can't really remember. And we're on to the pattern. So I used this long vest that I did up in school because it had the general shape and length that I was going for, and I knew it fit me, and I liked how it fit me. So I traced all along the important lines that I needed, and then went in with my ruler to make sure they were actually straight because I was tracing a piece of fabric. And then I added in my curve, and I didn't have a ruler at this point, so I freehanded it, which I've done a lot. It's best to have a curve ruler, which I later bought. And then I added my seam allowance because you need seam allowance. And then I cut this out. This is also sped up. It's so satisfying to watch this very fast. And you can see my sister in the corner because we were having a video chat. She was cleaning and I was doing this. And then I traced it out again so I could do the front piece, and I took the mock-up from my long vest because I have that because I keep everything. Added the curve. I didn't have to add seam allowance because I already had it in the piece I traced. And I wanted to add enough on the front though so I could have the fold over on the chest. And it's so nice to watch fast cutting. At this point I was tired. I've been doing this for a while, like so long. I don't even know how long. And then the sleeve, you don't just trace your sleeve because I'm not skilled like that. So you take a measuring tape and then you measure your arm, which can be hard to do for yourself. It's a bit of a struggle. You got to figure out how to hold it, and then you got to do the math to make sure like the part where your hand's holding isn't part of your thing. And then you write that down. It's always good to record all your measurements because you'll need them, and you don't want to have to remeasure like an extra 10th time. And then drew my straight line because your sleeves got to be like low-key symmetrical, but not perfectly symmetrical. Except I was going for symmetrical because I decided I was. Or was I? Yes, I was. And then I measured my armholes, and then I measured them again because I didn't trust my measurements the first time. And I wrote those down, and I decided how big I wanted my wrist hole to be. Armhole? Wrist hole. I'm going with wrist hole. And then I decided to trace this out because sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. And then I measured, and the measurements were off, and I've been trying for like an hour. So I grabbed my pattern drafting book, and I opened my sleeve pattern part, and I followed the directions. And it was so much easier. Like, it was so much easier. Follow directions, kids. So then I followed the pattern. It still took forever because, like, I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I've done a sleeve. So it was stressing me out. But I got there, and then I did the measurements, and I curved my, like, measuring tape to, like, follow the curve so you can measure it. That's why measuring tapes are great. And then I used my nice straight lines, add in my seam allowance, which can be tedious on a curve, but I did it. It's a little messy, but it's a pattern for me, so the cares are less. And then I cut it out, being so glad that I finally got my sleeve, although I only did half, because I was like, oh, I'm going to fold this, and I'm going to trace it, because I'm just going to go symmetrical, because it's a coat, and it's loose. So I did that, and I got ready to trace, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't have to do this, it's symmetrical. So then I just cut it, because then I'll put it on the fold, so I don't need to add seam allowance to that. And then I decided I wanted to add a little extra there, so I could do a cute little like pleat thingy on the shoulder. So I used a bunch of tape, because you need tape. Tape should be a part of your sewing stuff. Tape is so helpful for this. And decided how much I wanted to add, made sure it was even on the top. And you want it to go down and be like even along this spine of your arm. But I didn't have enough paper, so I added more paper. This is why it's great to have these little scraps and you can add them. It's reusable. Not really. I don't know what the right word is. But then I did that, and then I taped more. I used so much tape. It was great. It's very satisfying to watch really fast. And then I cut that out. And then my sleeve was done. Almost. And it's done. Now this is my glorious, glorious fabric, which I'm excited about. So I folded that in half to like get all nice, and then I remembered this freaking stain. It's everywhere. Well, it's not everywhere. It's in these little spots everywhere. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I went to the pharmacy and I got that. And then I spent a while trying to get all the stains out. I couldn't get all of them, but I like diluted them mostly. And then we're working with a pattern fabric. You got to be very careful on how your pattern falls on your pattern fabric. So I had to make sure all the patterns were like smooth, so it wouldn't be all crooked and wonky and off center. So I cut that out, and I did the sleeve, making sure to maximize the use of my fabric and not just cutting out in the middle, because some people do that and you shouldn't be doing that. It's so much wasteful. It's just wasteful. It's just wasteful. And I cut that out, and you can see my tattoo peeking out, which is kind of like exciting. And woo! One done. And then I checked to see the little stains, because I was not sure where they were falling, and then I decided to test the length of my body. I was really happy with how this turned out. And look, it's got enough looseness because I'm doing a special seam and it flaps real nice. And here's some deja vu as I do the next one. Once again, really gotta line up those patterns, especially when they're straight lines. With other patterns, you gotta make sure all the patterns are facing the right way. This one's not as bad for that. And I did the front. I lined up the front along a fold, which, because it fit the best there, which I have to cut anyways. But then I lined that up, making sure to cut it out nice and straight as I scoot around. And then I cut it out. Also, I'm obsessed with my paper weights. They make great pattern weights. And my pieces. And here's the leftover fabric, which I might make something with. Then I serged along all the edges because they're ravelly, because they're a weave kind of fabric like that. I don't know the technical word right now. But I didn't want them unraveling and stuff, so I decided just to make them nice and clean, which was so satisfying. And then I attached the shoulders with a nice straight stitch, leaving enough room so I could press it open because I didn't want the extra bulk sitting on top of my shoulder. But oh, so nice. And then I put the top stitches because top stitches are so cute. And then I put on my mannequin to figure out how I was going to pleat the little extra back. So I found the center and I pinned it in place on my mannequin, and then I figured out how much to pull to the center to make a little enclosed pleat. Don't know the correct pleat name. I'm not good with pleat names. But I was like, I like this. So it's fun to play around with this. I love draping. And then I did one in the waist too to bring it in a bit. It still fits loose, but it gives you like shape in your back. Like it hugs the center of your back real nice. And I am obsessed with how this turned out. So it was nice and open. Then I moved on to the sleeves. And I attached those right sides together all the way along, making sure they met, which they did. Because it worked out. My pattern was actually perfect. And then I pushed the fabric up to the one side. And then I planned a top stitch all the way along to press it down so I wouldn't have a seam flap in there. It turned out really nice. It's kind of hidden, half hidden because of the colors. And then I matched the sleeve sides together, stitched along them. But I did right sides together because I was gonna do a French seam. I wanted to enclose the sides of the coat and the sleeves into a nice little French seam. So when the jacket was open on the inside, you wouldn't have the seams showing. It makes for a really cute little fit. It's mostly done with much thinner fabrics, but this is for me and this is what I wanted, so it's what I did, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Then was the collar neckline situation. I didn't make a pattern for this because I wasn't sure, so I measured from the point I wanted to the center of the back of the neck, took this scrap piece of fabric, cut out this big long rectangle, serged all the way around it so it was nice and not unravelly, and then I enclosed the hem with a nice folded, tucking it all in nicely. I hand stitched all this because I didn't want any top stitching showing. Because the two different colors, I really want it to be all hidden. Then I shaped how I would have the point because I didn't want a right angle there, so I was debating with a round little point and seeing how I can make that work. And then I had the front coming up into that, so I had to do that first. So I folded it over twice and then I hand sewed it with a nice hidden stitch because I didn't want any stitches showing on the outside. And then because the edge would come into that and it would all close up together, so I can't really remember how to do this, but I did it. And then so there's a nice little hand stitching. It's nice and invisible, which I love. And then it goes up into the collar. And then trying it on, being really happy with how it was fitting. It's kind of like, it's different, but I love clothes that are like a little different. And then I measured up the bottom hem, making sure it was all equal, folding it up again because I made it too long. Making a nice enclosed edge where the front met the bottom. I hand sewed this too because it was so bulky. Then I cut out my pockets and serged all the way around. You can't see because apparently I didn't record the sewing of the pockets, but I folded down the top so it would be nice, and I folded it down like a couple inches or so, folded in the inside, the sides, and the bottom, and hand stitched to the coat as well, so I wouldn't have any seams peeking out. I found these toggles to use instead of buttons because the fabric's really thick, so I had to make the little ends for these because I didn't have any. So I decided what would be the best height, what would be the best length, folding them in half. Found one I was happy with, cut it out of pleather, and then played around with the shaping. I decided I want more of a point look as opposed to a square. And then I cut out the next one. I did a little rounded piece, which was really hard to turn inside out. This took me like 2 minutes. And then I fit that in, and it's starting to take its shape. I'm so happy. And then I sewed it in place, making sure it wouldn't come out and have a nice strong bond. And then I finished. The second one's my favorite, but I'm pretty happy with my first attempt for these. And they're sewn in nice and strong because I really didn't want them coming out. And then I attached them to the coat. This was the last piece for me to do. I feel like I'm missing footage. Whoops. So I made sure to go around, trying to keep nice along the edges so it would have a low-key professional look. They ain't symmetrical, but they're kind of cute. I might play around with these more in the future because I really like this kind of enclosure. They're nice and strong so I don't accidentally pull them off or something. And I'm so happy with how they turned out. I embroidered Aran Rod designs on it because that's a great use of my time. Here's some beautiful, unusual snow, which inspired me to make this coat. Now onto the reveal, where the snow had all melted, because it took me so long. I'm so happy with it. It's so cute, and you can see how much it flooded. I'm really happy with how the back turned out. It's such a fun little interesting design. This big nice pocket fits either a wallet and a Starbucks cup or a book. It's pretty great. And the inside pocket fits my phone perfectly. And I'm really happy with how the seams turned out on the inside. All the clean edges. That's it. Thank you for making it this far. Let me know if you have any ideas on what I should make next. Peace out till next time.